Welcome to the podcast Selling Real Estate with Kelly Cook, where we will discuss the latest and most relevant business strategies to help you do one thing extremely well: sell more homes. We'll discuss everything from business planning to lead generation and conversion to past client customer service and everything in between. Join us for authentic conversations and nuts and bolts takeaways you can implement into your business today. And now, Selling Real Estate with Kelly Cook.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Selling Real Estate with Kelly Cook. Kelly is with us today, and we're coming off the heels of a guest, which we hadn't had in a while. So if you haven't already, go back and listen to last week. Kelly, how was it having somebody else in here with us?
It was awesome. I love our banter back and forth. I think we do a good job keeping it short, sweet, and to the point. But having a guest on is fantastic every once in a while. I love sprinkling that in. So thank you for everyone who suggested that. And and I had heard from some of you guys too as well that you wouldn't mind hearing more. But we want to make sure they're good, right? Embedded. And that person was legit. I mean, I think anybody needs to hear information about different ways to create leverage. It's not all just AI bots. And sometimes you can't afford to maybe have someone sit right next to you in an office, right? In America. But that's a nice in between for some of you guys who are running a business that need leverage.
Mm-hmm. Leverage, and I will say too, with consistency, right? Because even if you hire somebody in the States, like the job market over the past couple of years has really turned and burned, so to speak. So it's a great way to get leverage and consistency with that leverage. But yeah, if anybody else, if you have any other suggestions for a guest that we should have on, if you think you've got something really valuable for our audience, just reach out to us and we'll have, of course, the information at the end of this episode. But go back and watch that one if you haven't already. And let's get into our topic today. We're switching gears a little bit from working on your business, so to speak, and how to get leverage and to do all of these things, and focusing back today on the thing that really matters the most in all of real estate businesses, and that's actually getting real estate deals done, right?
Yes.
that is the bottom line. That's what you got to do, right? And so today, Kelly said that he's been seeing something kind of in a balanced market where we're at right now, where the trends kind of are with selling real estate. And today we're going to talk about reframing strategies to reframe your seller's mind around accepting a quote unquote low offer. An offer that is fair, right? Like, we're not saying a low ball. We're not going to try and try to get them to accept something that is clearly unfair. But an offer that's lower than they may have originally wanted, right, Kelly? So let's get into that.
Yeah. Okay. So let's dive right in. So this is happening all across America right now in real estate. If you're a realtor doing deals, which hopefully you are, that's why you're listening to this podcast. But if you are, then this is a strategy and a couple tidbits here of information of what you can do to help get those offers accepted. Because guys, there's no secret right now. There's a lot of sellers that have their house on the market that just are not realistic with pricing. Now, that will always be the case, no matter good market, bad market. You always have those people. But there's a majority, I would say right now, that still feel, because prices aren't just like tanking everywhere. That's not happening. But it is a balanced market in most markets, if not leaning towards a buyer's market. And if the trend is true, then you're going to be, even in a balanced market, like technically Phoenix as an example. Technically, we are just on the fringe of a buyer's market / balanced market when it comes to data. But the trend in most places is at that buyer's market situation, right? In which the buyer just has more leverage. But a lot of sellers, because they don't see the prices just tanking everywhere, and they see the stock market doing okay and that sort of thing, they're just kind of holding out, right? And still hoping that price that they really want is going to be there for them. And so so this specifically today is about if you have a seller, a client that has a listing that's not selling and it's sitting for a little while. So the price is a little high. There's no doubt about that. Everyone kind of agrees upon that if you're unbiased and know what you're talking about. Then an offer comes in. And the offer is not close necessarily. Close is relative, but not close to the asking price. But it is right around that market value number. And the only reason why there's a chasm between there is because you're overpriced. Right? So, number one, this is so simple but obvious. Meet the seller face to face. Okay? If you have not had an offer for a while, if you are been struggling to get an offer just in general, and you finally have one come in, and you know, oh crap, it's not going to go over well because there's the difference in this offer, then yeah, chances are if you just call them up and talk to them, it won't go as well than if you take the time to drive to their house, meet them at a coffee shop, whatever, and present the offer to them. Okay. So that's number one. Now, when you go through it, you need to have data. You need to back up what you are going to say. Okay. Now, when you get the counter offer, okay, now at some point you're gonna hopefully get in the counter something. And and guys, here's the deal. I use the word olive branch all the time, because a lot of times if there's a chasm and you know they're a little overpriced, sometimes you get sellers who are like, you know what, I'm not screw that. If I'm going to counter back anything, it's going to be full price because they're upset,
Yeah.
right?
So they want to resist.
Yes, you got to try to detach the emotion from it. I was told a long time ago that when someone decides to sell their house, they have decided to treat their home as an asset at that time, no longer some emotional attachment home. It's now a house, an asset, no different than you would trade your Google stock without even blinking twice if the number was what you wanted, okay, or in that ballpark. So you got to detach the emotion from them and bring it back to even, so to speak, right, and get them to understand that even though it's low, you have stories of other examples of times where it came in even lower than this. The difference was even lower, and you got them to come up. Why? Because you held tight to your negotiation, but you kept good faith, giving them an olive branch. If you just give them a small counter, $5,000, something like that, right? Sometimes that act of good faith will keep that buyer who really is interested in the house coming up and sticking around. And then you can hopefully reel them in to where you can come to an agreement that is actually a situation where you don't meet in the middle. Guys, good negotiations, not meeting in the middle. It's not. Sometimes, sure, but most of the time, it's not. Read the book by Chris Voss. What's the title of that book? The guy, he's a former law enforcement FBI negotiator for high stake hostages and all kinds of stuff. Never split the difference. That's the title of the book. Okay. Read it. It's a good one. He also has a couple other good books out there. But here's a great strategy that I want to get to. When you get the counter to come back, so let's say you hypothetically your listing price is $700,000. The offer comes in at 640, and you know the market value really is about like 670 ish or so. You know, maybe 665. Okay, but you're at 7. You're overpriced. You haven't got much activity, and then all of a sudden this offer comes in at 640, and in that situation, if you let's hypothetically think you got the seller to come down a good amount, and say they weren't super emotional to it and they were willing to play ball to an extent, but you know that 640 is way too low. Okay, I don't disagree with you. Let's work on a amicable solution. So you give them the counter, let's say at let's say 680. Okay, they come off 20K in this example. Now the strategy here is then to, with their permission, ask them if you could also adjust the price on MLS and all the marketing down to 680 at the time you deliver that counteroffer to the buyer's agent. See what this does, it then gets the price adjustment. It's a good reason to get that, because if you didn't have that offer and weren't doing this counteroffer, you have no reason to stand on it instead of just asking for it, which sometimes is not going to work because they just want to hold tight to their guns, right? But if you are going to counter at 680, you might as well reduce the price to 680 because clearly you're willing to take 680. And sometimes they will resist, but you explain the strategy behind it. And the strategy behind it is, by doing so, Mr. Seller, sometimes the buyer agent now knows you're willing to play ball. They also know in doing so that more people will now see your property and their eyes will perk up because it's at 680, no longer 7.
There's more competition.
Bingo. And that creates scarcity. And if it creates scarcity in their mind, even if there's no true scarcity in the marketplace for that 20K drop, that's all that matters. Now all of a sudden they go, oh crap, it's at 680 now. The whole world can see it. Yeah, let's maybe not go to 680, but let's counter back at 670 or 675 or whatever like that, just to try to wrap this thing up and whatnot. When in theory, if you just counter back at 680, leave the price at 7. There's no sense of urgency. Nothing changed in their mindset. The buyer,
believe they still have the upper hand.
Yes, you are still the lower frame. They have the upper frame. And if you read a book by Oren Klaff, which is phenomenal, called Pitch Anything, all he talks about is frameworks. And that every situation where you're communicating with somebody on something, there's a frame being had. And if you have the upper frame, you typically get your desired outcome. If you are in the lower frame status, you don't. And that's how it works. And until you choose to take back the upper frame, you will always be just hoping, begging, and praying that it just happens to work out in your favor, as opposed to taking charge of it. So this strategy is a great one. And by the way, you don't want to upset the buyer's agent. And so not that at the end of the day, if they get upset, you can't control it. But the reality is there's a couple of things you can do to potentially prevent it. And so what you do is before you do that price adjustment in the MLS that they will see upon delivering the counteroffer, you let them know, hey, here's a counteroffer. Here's why we came back, blah, blah, blah. Let them know your position as to why you're at 680, right? Like you should do anyway. And you say, and by the way, the seller did give me permission to go ahead and adjust the price down to 680 as well, a price improvement. And so I just want to give you the heads up. You're going to see that as well on there. But I didn't want to think we're trying to play games with you in this situation. Okay. And then deliver it. And then hopefully, I'm just telling you guys, this is a beautiful strategy that all of us, if we're serious about getting a lower offer accepted, should be seriously considering to do, because it is in the best interest of your client who's trying to sell their house for the highest dollar possible.
Ultimately, it like you kind of said, it keeps your client in control of it, instead of just saying, well, this is the best offer you're going to get. You've got to stoop down to this, or, whatever, which is not what they want to hear. Right. Taking this strategy really does keep them in control of their house, of their asset. Right. Because at the end of the day, it is theirs. They have the final say. Right. But allows you to do what's best for them while maintaining their control, so to speak.
Yep.
So
that's it.
Absolutely.
And guys, if you've been in real estate long enough, you understand how this works sometimes. Sometimes you can't even quantify or pinpoint it. But there's been times where we just, I was trying to get, let's say, a $25,000 reduction on a home of some price point that's, higher, let's say. And the seller won't budge. But they go, you know what, Kelly, fine. If you think it will help, I'll go 10,000 or 7,000 or just something that was much smaller, right? And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, based on the data, you're thinking to yourself, that's probably not going to help much. But I mean, certainly if they're willing to do that, I'll take it, because it'll be closer to my goal where I think market value lies. And all of a sudden, this little $7,000, $5,000 price reduction that you think would have it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, just opens up one person or maybe two to reach out and say, now I want to look at it, and now I'm interested in potentially buying the property.
It could be too, depending on, what that price is, but people set their when they're looking purchase on Zillow or whatever, they set that purchase price. They're not going above, 650. And if your client had it at 655 or whatever, now just by lowering that, now you've opened up a pool of viewers, right? So sometimes even those little odd changes can make a difference.
Yeah, I would say, and again, go one step further, Elizabeth, even if it's like some weird pricing tier, you're at 670 and they give you the permission to drop to 665. And you're like, well, I'm not going under 650 here. So and that's where probably market value is. And we know there's more eyeballs under 650 for sure, but 665, I don't know. But sure, I'll go ahead and do that, because I think it's something's better than nothing, so to speak. And you do it. The next thing you know, phone call. Can I see the house on, and you don't necessarily, it doesn't always make sense, but it does work. And so whenever you can get some sort of adjustment on that pricing, it will help.
An improvement on that pricing. Yeah.
Improvement on that pricing.
That's right. All right, everybody. Well, like we said at the beginning here, if you have an idea for a guest, you want to be a guest, you've got anything that you want to talk about that you want to see on the podcast, or just any questions for Kelly, where can they reach you?
Yeah. Reach me at Instagram at Kelly Cook Homes. Shoot me a DM. Give me a follow there. That'd be fantastic. And let's connect.
Yeah. And we just I don't think we've shouted this out recently. And I know this podcast wasn't about YouTube, but just to throw that back out there, Kelly has a fantastic YouTube channel. And it is Everything Phoenix?
Everything Phoenix.
There we go.
Everything
All right.
Phoenix.
Everything. I was like, is his name somewhere in there? Yeah, just Everything Phoenix on YouTube. So it's something we've talked about quite a bit in the past, but just wanted to throw that back out there. Go check out YouTube, Everything Phoenix. Please. And we will see you all next time. Bye, Kelly.
See you, Elizabeth.